You are not the destiny of your genetics. That's why we have what we call epigenetics, because genetics kind of load the gun, but epigenetics, your environment, all your decisions, that's what's going to pull the trigger or not. We are actually intelligently designed to eat all of these foods. Yeah. What happens is through pesticides and drugs and surgeries, we mess up the gut so we can't handle them anymore.
Welcome to In Good Company.
Dr. Rachel Shuck is an integrative healthcare practitioner and clinical nutritionist who helps people stop chasing symptoms and start addressing the root cause, starting with gut health. With a doctorate in integrative healthcare and clinical nutrition and over 20 years of experience as an educator, she specializes in metabolic health, hormone balance, and sustainable food-first strategies. Her work challenges one-size-fits-all health advice and empowers people to better understand what's really driving fatigue, weight gain, and chronic health issues. Dr. Shuck, welcome to our show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Dr. Shuck, we're so glad you're here. So help us understand what integrative health is.
So that is essentially when I use that description because of how that is, it is combining all the natural modalities, right? So I'm obviously going to work with my people on, at the core, fundamental piece is nutrition, but I can't be everything to everyone, and I don't have all the tools, right? So if somebody maybe needs something that's more involved with lymph, I'm going to send them to a lymph specialist, but at least I'm aware and know how to bring in those different and integrate those different pieces of healthcare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And so what are your boundaries? You mentioned nutrition. Mm-hmm. Do you get into supplements and different things like that?
Yeah. So supplements, it's funny because half the health world hates supplements and the other half thinks you need to be taking like 1,000 supplements. And the unglamorous truth is that we lie somewhere in the middle, most people, right? Because everyone who walks into my door is walking in with a very different background, right? Do you have a gallbladder? Do you have an appendix? Which, we were told the appendix was a useless organ. Turns out it's a big storehouse for probiotics that, it's like there was a backup plan or designer had a plan. So sometimes people do need supplements and they're a tool and we use them. In a perfect world, would we get all of our stuff from our food? Absolutely. That's just not the reality right now. Unless you can go live somewhere and grow and produce all your own food. I don't know how you could do it.
So let's dig into that.
Okay.
The food system in the United States, give us your full opinion.
I mean, it sucks. So obviously we have a lot of great resources, right? But it's kind of why so many people who walk through my door need a magnesium supplement because the soil has been depleted. We don't replenish the soil when we're doing big mass monocrop type of farming things. I'm not an expert farmer. I do have a little hobby farm. And so I know there's so many things that are important for good soil health that we just don't do. And so people aren't getting that. And then on top of that, we're spraying, right? Our food's getting sprayed with glyphosate, the one that you guys probably don't hear about as much, but it's just as bad for crops like corn and canola is glufosinate. All of these are at their core, they're antibiotics. And when you're putting antibiotics in your body, you are destroying your gut microbiome.
Okay.
So you got more opinion than you wanted probably.
No, this is exactly what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So what about just buying organic? Is that the key?
So I think it's helpful. And I live in the real world. We do the best that we can. I don't ever have a client come in and I say, oh my gosh, you can only ever buy organic food. It's just not sustainable. Mm-hmm. I will also say organic is a paid for label. So you might be better off to go to your farmer's market and talk to the person growing the produce. And instead of asking, is this organic, saying, do you spray? Do you treat? How do you grow your crops in your food?
Okay.
But that's always the better option if you can do that, for sure.
I'm somebody who's not doing anything. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to start trying to eat healthier. Just thinking about eating vegetables may not be the total answer. So maybe looking at other sources to try to get better nutrition. Mm-hmm. And then what's my next step? Like what should I be doing if I'm really wanting to take care of my nutrition as I'm getting older?
Well, I think first everyone's an individual, right? So first we need to make sure you are not what you eat, you are what you absorb. So we need to make sure that you are digesting correctly, appropriately. What's going in is coming out the way we want it to. So there's a lot of biofeedback we need to look at there. Once that's good, then we can look at, are there nutritional deficiencies? Are there minerals maybe you're missing? Are there vitamins that you're missing? A lot of times it comes down to absorption. Mm-hmm. So if we're just not absorbing it, but it's in the diet, then we got to work on that piece. And everyone is so different because you said, maybe adding more vegetables. And I'm like, that actually could be a great thing for you. That may be just what you need. But I also have people come in with a lot of gut issues and fiber. They're not ready for it yet.
Okay.
And I think fiber is amazing. But when you have a very disrupted gut, those are the people who are like, I can't eat broccoli. I can't eat Brussels sprouts. I'm bloated. I'm in pain.
Yeah.
They need more healing before that.
Things around gut health I've heard are things like the elimination diet. Is that kind of the direction you have folks go?
Depends on the person.
Okay.
Because elimination diet can be really great. Nobody suffers other than psychologically from cutting out the crap in their diet. So if you're going to do an elimination diet where you're taking out the processed carbohydrates, so that's white flour, white sugar, those things, that can be very helpful. So that may be that's the only thing somebody needs, and they're the easy peasy person, right? Mm. But then I get people who come to me who have been on proton pump inhibitors for 20 plus years. Well, okay, their digestion has been suppressed for 20 something years. We got to do more than that.
Okay.
There's a lot more healing that has to go on.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so for somebody like that, what would your starting point be?
So we'll start with upper digestion, right? I mean, like the fundamentals of I would also say one of my first things is like, we got to start scaling back on the pharmaceuticals because they're part of the roadblock. Mm-hmm. So starting with upper digestion, so chewing food thoroughly, putting your fork down between bites, that can just be helpful for getting that piece of the digestion going. Someone who's been on a proton pump inhibitor probably has. So the thing about those, oh gosh, there's so much to say, so those basically, they suppress stomach acid. Well, we need our stomach acid to digest our food, right? So when you have suppressed stomach acid, then you're not breaking the things down right. So we have to get off of those so their stomach acid can start doing its job again. Mm-hmm. But getting off of those has its own strategy because there's something called a rebound effect when you go off of them. Mm-hmm. So again, this is why it's so individual, because how long have you been taking it? What has it, what has it been doing to you? We know it causes mineral depletion. That's why osteoporosis is a risk for that. No one's supposed to be on them for 20 plus years. They literally say, you use them
15 days, right?
Right. And then I have these women come to me with osteoporosis. Surprise. They've been on it. I have one client, 25 years.
Oh boy.
And so it's a long, slow process, but when the people are ready and willing to do the work, then we start there. And then we move on to the lower digestive tract. A lot of times to help heal and seal the gut, I will do, I don't do it. They do it. My clients do a lot of work. Mm-hmm. We'll do meat stock, not bone broth. Those are two very different things. So that is really key for helping heal and seal that intestinal lining. And then from foods, true fermented foods. Okay, I did write a book because there's a lot to say here.
Yeah,
Okay.
Absolutely.
But with the fermented foods, so a lot of people don't understand they're not getting a true fermented food. I'll be like, okay, go get some sauerkraut and we're going to microdose and we'll pour just a little bit of the juice into the meat stock. And that's going to help get the probiotics going. And of course, you don't want the meat stock too hot because you don't want to be killing the probiotics. But they'll be like, okay. And then they tell me they bought something off the shelf made with vinegar. Well, that's not the ferment I'm looking for. I need something made with salt, cabbage, water. So it grew those bacteria that we're trying to repopulate the gut with.
Okay.
So yeah, anyway, so that's kind of what that would look like for someone, depending.
That's great information though, because I think a lot of people out there, when they've heard gut health, they've heard leaky gut, they've heard elimination diet, they've heard, and they sometimes struggle with, and that's, I think, one of the things that I really like to point out to people is that because it is so nuanced to each person, trying to do some of your own experimenting at home may or may not go well. And having a professional that's, going to help walk you through some of those things is really key. Yeah. Is things related to gut health probably the number one thing that you help people deal with, or are there other things?
Well, I will say this. I don't think you can separate out the two. I do a lot of metabolic health. So that's people with high blood sugar, high blood pressure, high triglycerides, overweight. But that is intricately connected to gut health. So I see both, but we rarely separate out the two, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, and with labs, lots of things to look at as far as I want to make sure they're absorbing correctly. So I usually look at iron. There's lots of different iron markers. B12 is another good one, helps me know if they're absorbing correctly. There's a couple other ones, but those are kind of the two big ones that I look at. And if they're super low and they're eating a diet high in those, we know we've got some kind of issue we need to deal with.
So, so does traditional medicine embrace the idea of leaky gut and all of the issues that are related to them?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that. So years ago, gut permeability or leaky gut, I don't like calling it traditional medicine because I feel like they stole. Traditional medicine was healing and doing the thing. So we'll call it allopathic medicine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So years ago, they said gut permeability was a total whack thing that didn't exist and it was ridiculous. Most practitioners have come full circle on that and are like, okay, it's a thing. And we know it's a thing. So when things get into your blood system that don't belong there, how'd they get there? Through your gut.
Right.
Well, there's obviously some cracks going on there if they're getting in when they're not supposed to.
And do you think the challenges with getting I should say traditional.
I know, it's okay. I mean, that is how we think of it. You can say, I say it too.
Our current mainstream health system, do you think the issue is just education? Or is it research as well?
I think a huge part of it is education. So I actually used to work in a clinic with two medical doctors. They were great. They were kind of the exception to the rule. But they would joke like, their training was in drugs and surgery. It was not in nutrition and how to truly heal the body. It was more about suppressing. They weren't like that at all. But it was, that's what they were trained in, was symptom suppression or elimination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it starts at the schools?
I listen, I haven't sat through a medical school, so I can't say for sure, but that's the view I get.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've had, a physician on the show who said that, there wasn't a lot of education on certain topics. And I could understand, if it's a lot just to be able to diagnose something and then have a series of treatments that are at your disposal, a more complicated, more, how do I put this, more responsibility on the patient.
Well, you know what? And it does. And the onus is on them. And that a lot of people want to show up and get a pill. And that is true. I find for me, my best clients are the ones who are either very frustrated with the medical system and haven't gotten answers, or they're very afraid of, something happened and they're like, okay, I have to fix this. Because you get the people kind of in between, and I'm asking them to make hard lifestyle changes that food, your family and food, your friends and food. And it's not like I'm telling people not to live their lives, but they're making an adjustment. And so they have to be fully invested. I've also learned to charge more because they got to have some skin in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of information out there,
Yeah.
and people are, I mean, quite honestly, some are very desperate to try to figure out what the answers are. They don't have a lot of resources or feel like, well, if it's online, then, it must be, at least partially true or something. And they're trying to figure things out on their own. What would you tell people that, or I guess warn people about trying to do DIY nutrition?
Well, I'm glad you brought this up because I have a lot of online, like YouTube, people who found my YouTube, right, come to me after they have done carnivore and been unsuccessful, and they can't say it in the carnivore community or they get roasted.
Yes, they
are
do.
not allowed. Yeah. And so they come find me, and then we start talking about, like, I think the biggest thing I want people to know is just because it worked for someone else, that doesn't mean it was for you. Like, start thinking about your own. I mean, maybe it'd be helpful if they went through and make a list of, like, here's my medication history, here's my surgery history, like, and then really start thinking about, okay, and then they're gonna have to keep digging. Or you work with someone. But yeah, because that really is hard. And I have a great example of, I had a guy come to me. Well, oh gosh, I have a lot of examples. Okay, but I'll use this one. And one of the carnivore for years, and it did help, because you learn that when you cut out the crap, you get a lot less food noise, all of that. But he was very stuck. And when we started testing, it was like, well, your estrogen is way higher than it needs to be. Well, the way you get rid of estrogen is fiber through food. And he wasn't eating fiber. So, and his gut was fine. It was ready for it. So we just added that back in, and his estrogen balanced out, and it was, but again, he'd been in that community, and you can't do
it.
Yeah.
It's very, I don't know what the right word is, but some were radical.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Dogmatic, radical. Yes. Yes. And I will say it's not just carnivore. I'm like, if you vegan, vegetarian, keto, they're all, and I'm like, there's just not a one size fits all.
Yeah.
And I even in my book, I explained the whole digestive tract of how we are actually intelligently designed to eat all of these foods. Yeah. What happens is through pesticides and drugs and surgeries, we mess up the gut so we can't handle them anymore.
Right.
Oxalates aren't bad, but if you don't have the bacteria, what is it called? Oxalate formagenes or whatever. Yeah, if you're missing that gut bacteria to break down oxalates, then you are going to struggle.
What's an oxalate?
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
So those are compounds found in foods like spinach and almonds. And so a lot of people struggle with eating those types of foods because they're missing a bacteria they should have had.
You're fixing the gut, but once you fix the gut, what can they go back to eating again?
Well, and this is going to be true for anybody who wants to have and I'm not going to say long, but have a healthy life, a quality of life. You can go, once the gut is healed, you can go back to eating just about anything except for the big offenders that none of us should be eating, right? And that's the refined carbohydrates, the ultra processed foods, alcohol should be minimal. I'm going to get so blasted for this one, but a lot of my people should not be doing caffeine.
Yeah.
I know everyone loves it and they're all addicted to it. And I'm married to someone who is addicted to it, but I can also say all these people, when they cut the caffeine, they do so much better.
Gut-wise or otherwise?
Gut-wise and metabolically wise. I mean, if you think about, okay, I'm going to give you more of a lesson that you may not want, but when my people come in and they have what we call high hemoglobin A1C, so that is the amount of sugar stuck inside of a red blood cell, stuck to the hemoglobin, okay? So when that's high and your red blood cell has all that stuff stuck to it, well, your red blood cells, when they're floating through like your arteries, it's big, wide open highways, right? But when they need to go through the capillaries, they have to like crouch down and go single file. Well, now when they can't fold over right? So they can't really fit through the capillaries like they want to. So now we've already got this kind of too tight, not fitting thing. And then people add caffeine on top of that, especially with like high blood pressure, right? Now you've taken that capillary and you've squeezed it down even smaller. So people do better when they're not doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
And the high A1C could be treated in what way?
Oh, that's diet. Yeah. Yeah. So that is the amount of, like I said, the glucose that is stuck to your blood cell. Where do we get glucose? We get glucose from what we eat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why do you think it takes so long for people to get to that point where they're...
My honest answer, I think we have a lot of propaganda and a lot of programming as to, we are taught that drugs and surgery are what fix things. And that is the mindset everyone goes into it until they've been through it. And then they see, well, this actually didn't fix anything.
Yeah.
I've got a really, really kind of a good example of that is a lot of people that come in who've had their gallbladders removed. So I will always ask them, okay, when you had your gallbladder removed, did anybody sit down with you and say, hey, listen, this probably wasn't your gallbladder that was the problem. Your liver is what makes the bile that goes into your gallbladder. Your liver is probably sick, struggling, making sludgy bile. This is probably what's the upstream cause. And so I always ask, did anybody tell you that? And I'm batting 1,000. They're always like, what? No, I've never heard that.
Right.
So again, it's just, that's what people are taught and what they're told.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a physical therapist by trade.
Oh, nice.
So I've spent my whole career trying to help people solve problems before surgery. I mean, I've helped a lot of people after surgery, but the point is that conservative was always kind of the baseline. Like, what can we do to try to get someone, to a better place? And the problem from my perspective was that I always treated things with several different modalities, manual therapy, massage, manipulation, and exercise, a variety of different types of exercise. And I had good luck in my career, but I never was educated in or focused on the nutritional side of things for them. Even though it wasn't, my place, I could have identified some things and said,
right,
here, let's get you to a nutritionist. And this is going to get you the rest of the, 70% of the way to not having this recur multiple times, because I never tied the orthopedic issues to the nutritional issues. They were always like overuse syndrome or some issue that, that they just had poor body mechanics. And I just never understood until even recent years, like you're just leaving so much on the table as a practitioner by not including everything else.
Oh, I 100% agree. And it's so nice when I have like the physical therapists and the pelvic floor therapists who understand and get that, like, a huge part of this inflammation that people are dealing with. Yes, a lot of it is mechanical. And that's why I'm like, go see a physical therapist. I can't help you with that. But a lot of it is internal. Yeah. And I actually have a whole talk called Inflammation Nation that kind of takes people through how all of this accumulates and how it happens and how to turn it around, because we are very intelligently designed and we have a great innate ability to heal if we give it the body the right tools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I suffer from my own variations of inflammation and even orthopedic issues that I've tried to self-treat, as a physical therapist. And some things I honestly didn't make any progress on until I was kind of inflammation free. And so, it's funny, the early days of me going carnivore was essentially like the elimination diet for me.
Yep.
And, I just shedded weight like crazy, and so many orthopedic issues resolved themselves really fast. But months into going further, other issues started to crop up. And it was really interesting. I felt like, oh, I had the answer, and I can see why those zealots on, in those groups, just are such believers, because they really feel like they found the miracle cure, because it really feels like that at the time. But then there's more to it. It's more complicated than that. And that answer, although seems very simple, isn't the whole answer for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is a tricky thing, because I mean, like you said, you did an elimination diet and you cut out all the stuff that was inflaming you, which is great. And I don't have any problem with carnivore short term. I just think when you go through our digestive tract, we were given tools for both. I mean, all kinds of tools for both.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that is why people become just so like, they just can't hear any other answer option.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I really I like kind of the direction that you go, because you speak to it as, what totally makes sense. It seems so logical that, we didn't just live on meat our entire evolution, that there's other ways. But the weird thing is, I think what confused me was that something that would normally be considered very healthy can become very unhealthy to someone without the right biome.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yes. Which is why it always comes back to the individual.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. And it's the inflammation thing. I had a client in my office on Friday. He had kind of fallen off the wagon, and he was like, well, this was a good reminder. He said, my plantar fasciitis, all of that flared right back up. He's like, as soon as I started eating like that, it all came back. And I was like, okay, you know what? Sometimes it's good to do that, so you remember.
Yeah.
You're not missing anything.
Yeah.
Keep eating the other way. Eat healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe that's why my clients resonate with me, but I'm like, you cannot expect perfection. You will lose your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that actually makes me feel much better about everything.
Yeah.
So a lot of people deal with fatigue and weight gain. What are some of the root causes that maybe are overlooked?
Well, it's funny because now it's starting to become really trendy. And so it's good. It's not being overlooked. But I'd say one of the biggest things that we see is with the fatigue and the weight gain is the excess insulin. And then when we have excess insulin in our body, then we become insulin resistant. And then it starts this huge vicious cycle of the weight gain and the fatigue, and just again and again and again, a spiral. Yeah. So I don't know how familiar you guys are with insulin resistance. Like, is that
walk us through it? Yeah.
Okay. So on a cell, like a muscle cell, you have a receptor that is going to let glucose in. And the glucose is what comes from your carbohydrates. The way that glucose gets in is your pancreas has to crank out insulin, and then it's going to attach. And in my book, my book's not even published, but I'm like already plugging it. But anyway, I explain all this in the book with little car analogies, but we're not going to go into that. So insulin has to connect to a receptor on the cell. It's kind of like, think of it like a lock and key, I guess. And it's going to open that glucose transporter and pull that glucose in. Okay. Well, when our cells get overstuffed, overfull, because we've just been shoving our bodies full of carbohydrates, which turn into glucose, I want to back up and say fiber is a carbohydrate, but it is not one that turns into glucose. Okay. So when the glucose can't get into the cells anymore, so what happens is the pancreas keeps sending out more and more insulin, trying to open that, the transporter. And it just can't. It's like it's knocking and being like, let me in. And it's like, no, we're full, right? So then you keep cranking out insulin. Well, insulin is a fat storage hormone. So the more insulin you're cranking out, the more what your body does is go, okay, there's too much glucose in the blood. This is dangerous. This causes problems. So let's take this glucose, get it converted into triglycerides, and store it as fat. So this is where the weight gain comes from. And then as you're doing all this, of course, the body's fatigued. It's overfed and undernourished. So you don't have all the tools the minerals, the cofactors, the vitamins, which are vitamins and minerals, to turn your food into energy, right? Now your body's just trying to save you. It's trying to keep you safe and protected.
What are your thoughts on like intermittent fasting and using autophagy to help heal the body?
I love it for the right person.
Okay.
So, and it comes down to every individual, because if I get a guy who sits at a desk, he's, overweight, sedentary, I think it's a great tool. Love it for that. I don't like it. I have some female athletes come in who are over exercising, under eating, and now they want to fast. And I'm like,
too much.
You're already undernourished, and now you want to add basically, they don't need, that's not what they need. Does the guy who has the midsection belly fat and sedentary need autophagy? Yes. But so again, everyone's different. Just depends.
Fair enough.
Well, I was going to just ask you, when you say overfed and undernourished, how much the undernourished drives craving and hunger.
It's a huge part of it. Huge. And this is why so many people have food noise. I said something about food noise to my husband the other day, and he's like, what's food noise? And I was like, you're so lucky you live with me. You've never had food noise. You might not like what's in our pantries, but yes. So what happens when you're eating nutrient void foods and your body's not getting the resources it needs? What's it going to do? It's going to cue hunger again.
Yeah.
Because we need something coming in, and then you just feed it more processed carbohydrates, rinse and repeat. I'm like, yeah, that's a huge problem.
I have lived that.
Really?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've had times where I just felt like I could just eat and eat and eat and never feel satisfied at all.
Yeah. And so a huge part of that is just so there's two pieces to that: not getting the nutrients in your food and not absorbing the nutrients that are in your food.
Right.
Yeah. The best thing you can do, just from a macro standpoint, is make sure you get plenty of fat in your diet and plenty of protein. Let the carbs fall where they may, and make sure they're not processed refined carbs. And then there's some other tools. You can use some herbals. For my clients, I have a product called Amlamore. So it's Amla, which is Indian gooseberry. All my supplements are just food, because food is medicine. But so it's Indian gooseberry, and then it's the moringa leaf from the miracle leaf tree. And that also seems to help people with the sugar cravings. So that's another tool. There's another herb called Gymnema sylvestre. I'm probably saying it wrong, but sometimes people open that up in like a capsule of it and put it on their tongue, and that will help. But ultimately, the thing is, most of my people, you have to get off the blood sugar roller coaster first thing in the morning, right? So if you're doing cereal, juice, coffee, because that will also increase cortisol, which will then make the blood sugar go higher. All of those things, you don't want to start your day like that.
What's a piece of mainstream health advice that you strongly disagree with?
Oh, that's a good question. All of it? No, I'm just kidding.
Unpack that.
Oh gosh. I mean, I can't even think of an example. I'm so like out of that world. I'm like, what is a mainstream piece of health advice? What comes to your guys' mind when you think of
that breakfast is the most important meal of the day?
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. So I love that you brought that one up, because again, individuals, if you are a person who is running around with high blood sugar all the time and you wake up not hungry, you shouldn't eat. You already have high blood sugar. Let everything calm down a little bit. I think people learn to, because of the whole breakfast is the most important meal of the day, they just learn to ignore hunger cues. And so I think for some people, breakfast is the most important meal of the day, especially, someone with adrenal fatigue or anything like that. They need to be, knowing that there's food coming in immediately. But so much of that is just, drink 8 glasses of water a day, right? Again, no, that makes no sense, because if you're a 90-pound woman, do you need the same as a 200-pound man? Like, what? And so I tell my people, I'm like, no, you should be looking at your urine. That's how you know if you're hydrated. Is it pale yellow? Great, we're good. Is it dark? You need more water. Is it clear? Okay, you're pushing all your electrolytes out. Like, let's just, pay attention to your body. Your body will always whisper before it will scream at you.
And so because you see lots of things on different labels that
Yeah.
make it seem like it's healthy. What are some of the highlights of the things people need to look out for that maybe it's not as healthy as it sounds?
So I always tell people skip all the marketing on the front. I do not care about that. Organic sugar, still sugar. Like, great. Go straight to the back and look at the ingredient list. That's where everyone should be looking, is at the ingredients. I'm like, yes, some of my people need to look at total carbohydrates and fiber and all of that. Start always with the ingredients.
And how do people, I mean, some of the, if you can't pronounce it, then don't
Yeah,
eat it.
I mean,
Is that pretty much the rule?
Yeah, I mean, if you have to sit there and do a deep dive on whether this is okay or not, just skip it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do get a lot of my clients who will text me photos of things and like, is this okay? Is this okay?
Yeah.
Which I don't mind at all. But it's just easier to just be like, okay, if you're not sure, just don't do it.
What about oils? Different oils that are out on the market?
Yeah. So, well, this goes down to like, everything's about processing, right? So, I think when you're doing like a coconut oil or something that's been expeller press and all that, I think that's fine. Then you get into like the grapeseed oils and some of these other oils that are also possibly cold pressed and not using all the hexane, and it's a different thing. But then when you get into the seed oils that are not, grapeseed is going to be different than like a soybean oil, right? Or I said seed oils. I'm trying to think of some other,
So
like
how do
rapeseed,
people, how do
canola
people
oil.
know how they're processed so they know to know this is naturally processed versus.
I mean, I have a little sheet I made for my clients that kind of says, this is okay. Depending on processing, this is okay. These are kind of just a no, we don't do, right?
Gotcha.
And I would say probably most of the big, quote, vegetable oils that you buy, they're using hexane and they're using all those things to process it.
What does that do?
I mean, it's a chemical compound that we don't need to be anywhere near or ingesting. Yeah. And when you get too many, omega-6s, and then you're creating inflammation in the body. We're supposed to have some, right? But not like, I mean, anything you buy almost now, if it's in a package, it has some kind of a seed oil in it.
So what oil do you cook with?
So I cook with butter that I get from Little Farm Store.
Okay. Yeah.
I cook with avocado oil. If I'm not cooking but like making something, I do olive oil, which I don't know. You guys want me to go down how to pick a good olive oil?
Yeah, please. We need all help.
Yeah,
we can
extra
get.
virgin olive oil.
Okay, so you want it to be extra virgin.
Okay.
You want it, when you pick it up, you want it to be from one region. You don't want it to blend from many places. Sometimes like one country is okay, but one region is better. Who cares about the expiration date? You don't care about that. You care about the either picked on date or the harvest date. And you want that to be within a year or two. You want to make sure it's in dark glass or, metal so that it can't oxidize. And then the true test is once you get it home, take a shot of it. If it's peppery and it burns the back of your throat, you got some good stuff. There's actually something called the 2 cough rule. So a lot of times, actually at my last event we did, it was
so
called
cool.
Sauce and Season. And we talked about the olive oil and everyone tried it. And because I had one flown in from Italy, and they, it was funny because some of the tables started coughing and I was like, this is so perfect.
That's the good
Yeah.
stuff.
That's good to know.
Yeah, it is really good to know.
Yeah.
I always wondered if there were other things mixed with some what they
That
say
is a whole
is
thing.
like
They
an
cut
olive
some
oil.
of them. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Really? And
Yeah.
can they do that without labeling it?
I don't know what the rules are there, but there are a lot of like gray areas with. I have a book I read years ago called Swindled, and it was all about how food processing and food manufacturers and all the shortcuts they can take.
Yeah.
One of them was like sawdust in the coffee and sometimes they're not supposed to and they get caught and they have to change. And sometimes that's just okay.
So why do you think people tout food in Europe in that area more than they do in the United States? How did they do things differently there?
Oh, well, I mean, they have a lot more, I don't think they're spraying like we are. So, I mean, people that can't eat wheat here can go over there and eat wheat just fine. It's not sprayed. It's not hybridized. There's a lot of pride, I think, and, more family I'm not a European farmer, so I can't say this for sure. But it seems like there's a lot less like mass, monocrop type industry there.
Yeah.
And I think that they just really take a lot of pride in having, clean food.
I'm 55 now. So like, the clock is ticking, and with my family history, it's ticking fast. And so that kind of sense of desperation of like, I better figure this out because I don't have a lot of time.
You've got a little sense of urgency.
I got a group of people depending on me, and I need to make sure that I invest in my future.
Yeah. And I just want to say, because you said the genetic thing, I'm like, I just also want people to know you are not the destiny of your genetics. That's why we have what we call epigenetics, because, there's a metaphor they like to use in this space. And it's basically like, genetics kind of load the gun, but epigenetics, your environment, all your decisions, that's what's going to pull the trigger or not.
Right.
Yeah.
That totally makes sense.
Yeah.
So if someone wanted to start improving their health today using food first tactics, what would you tell them to do first?
Well, honest answer, I'd probably tell them to start writing down everything they're eating, because honesty is a big thing when we're really talking about how healthy do you eat. Because, we talked about people coming and tell me they eat healthy, and then they're like, well, I don't normally eat like this. Maybe you do. Yeah. So I would say that's the first step, is just document everything and be really honest. Yeah.
Good advice.
Do you want to dive into your thing?
Yeah, let's
All right,
dive
let's
in.
do it.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
A while back, it's been a couple weeks.
Yeah.
I did I got on Dr. Shuck's website. She sent me a medical
It's like an intake
questionnaire.
Yeah.
Questionnaire. And I got to do a series of labs that I provided last week. And so we're going to dig into my health issues and see. I'm really looking forward to this.
Also, I feel like I need to give the caveat. This is not medical advice. This is my take from a optimized health perspective.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So the first thing I will say, like if you were coming into my office, what I did is I looked at your big main complaints, and you talked about GERD. You also talked about poor sleep, and you talked about stress. And I'm like, okay, I can help you with 2 of the 3 things. Stress, that one's not that's out of my control.
Sure.
Can I hopefully give you better tools to handle stress as far as like your body having more nutrients? Maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see. So the first thing when I looked at the GERD, as I'm like, okay, a lot of times when people have that kind of like acid type issue, it's being treated what I would consider the wrong way, because they say, oh, you have too much stomach acid, we need to suppress it. Mm-hmm. Normally, when someone has those symptoms, it's because they don't have enough stomach acid, because your stomach needs to fill to a certain point. And then once it fills to a certain point, then your esophageal sphincter will close. But if it doesn't fill all the way, then it's going to kind of be hanging half open, and then stuff can still come back up.
Okay.
So, I wanted to make sure that you were like digesting and absorbing correctly, which is why we checked the iron. We checked the B12. I'm trying to think of what else we checked on here. That was, and the folate. And I will say your numbers weren't bad, but like when I looked at the B12, and especially now that I'm talking to you, and I know that probably meat's a big part of your diet.
Yeah.
Okay. Which is fine. I don't have any problem with that. I would like to see that B12 number be around 600, and you were like around 482.
Okay.
So to me, that's like, I think step 1 is we need to improve your stomach acid.
Okay.
We need you killing pathogens better. We need you breaking down material better before it hits the small intestine.
Okay.
So that was one thing I noticed.
And the B12 would come from diet, like food, or would it be supplement?
I mean, you could supplement. I would think if we just got your stomach acid better, just the food. So B12 comes from pretty much only animal products.
Okay.
So that's going to be your meat and your eggs and that kind of thing.
Okay.
So I did look at that. And then, so that was the big thing. And then when we did your labs, there was a couple other things I saw. When I looked at your iron, that helps me know too if you're absorbing and digesting well, because iron metabolism kind of happens in a lot of places. one of the things I saw was that what we call your iron binding capacity was kind of on the low end,
Okay.
which is probably a reflection of what we call transferrin, which is kind of what transports your iron around. To me, that makes me start thinking liver, like what's going on with the liver. Maybe
Okay.
it needs a little bit of support. Kind of, I would say probably there's some subclinical inflammation.
Okay. And you don't think that has anything to do with the statin I take?
I think it could, absolutely. So
Okay.
let's talk about that.
Okay, let's talk about it.
So one thing that I saw that I was like, I really didn't like is your fasting glucose was high. Okay. Which we know that statins can raise blood sugar.
Yeah. And when you say high, what do you mean?
So you were at 109. I like to see people under like 90. Now, if you look at a lab report, it's going to say like, I don't remember, like 65 to 99.
Yeah.
So it is even by modern medical, it's too high.
Yeah. My average is 126.
Okay.
And that is high for me, but that's since the statin. And I'm on that. I didn't do the continuous glucose monitor prior.
Before the statin?
The statin, I actually picked that up after I'd started the statin. So I don't know what statin-free glucose
look
levels
like.
that are
Yeah.
normal for me. But yeah.
So let me ask you a question. Did you try any like herbals or anything kind of more natural before you went to the statin?
No.
Okay.
No, I mean, I think I had tried like the keto and carnivore and different things
gotcha.
like that, but my cholesterol was high in my late 20s. Like it was it was skyrocketing in my late 20s, and at that point, doctors were like, well, you're young, we're not gonna, and that was a long time ago.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of thoughts on cholesterol too, because I think it's pretty misunderstood. But also, if we're just going to just kind of go with the current cholesterol narrative, I'm like, that also could have just been a reflection of your liver health. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So that's interesting. I mean,
So
I would ask, like, would you be open to trying something different?
Yeah. I mean, have you pulled people off statins?
So I personally don't ever take anyone off medication. They make that decision between them and their doctors.
Sure.
But yes, people have absolutely been able to stop their statins.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they've gotten their cholesterol down. And
Yes. Now I will also say cholesterol numbers are a little bit, so there's some marketing that goes on there, right? Because that number, total cholesterol, used to be 300. Okay. You sit in a boardroom and you go, how do we sell more cholesterol medication? You drop that number to 250. What happens when you drop that number from 250 to 200? You get huger and bigger populations that need to be on statins.
Okay.
So that's something to keep.
So
Same
is
with
the
blood pressure meds.
So is the bigger problem the inflammation versus the cholesterol
to me,
level?
To me, 100%. I think so. But this is just personal opinion. You know, would I ever allow my husband or my father to go on a statin? Absolutely not.
Okay.
Yeah.
And why is that?
So when you start really digging into the research, there's a lot of side effects. Well, one, we know it raises glucose, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, when you raise glucose, what else do you raise? Insulin. Well, what does insulin do? It's inflammatory. And then when you really start digging, you're like, best case scenario, you may live an extra 3 days. And then you're like, okay, for all the side effects and things, like, is the juice worth the squeeze?
Right.
I used to work, I worked with a neurologist. He was one of the functional medicine doctors. And the first thing he would do when someone came in, he was like, get off the statin immediately. I don't tell people that but again, I would not ever put my dad or my husband on one.
Well, I fought it forever. Like, I mean, I just went on it. I've been on it maybe a year.
Oh, okay.
And I needed it, decades before,
Yeah.
or well,
So maybe
as far as the
it's good
medical
that you
community,
yeah.
maybe it's a good thing. But
Yeah.
I guess my question is that if, like, how do you know what's right then cholesterol wise if you're not relying on that as your marker for reducing your chances for heart attack or stroke.
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a whole conversation about that right now with so many people in kind of the more natural space. And I actually have a friend who's a pharmacist, 35 years as a pharmacist, who is like, statins are the worst. Get off of them. Because I think personally, they're kind of measuring the wrong thing, right? If you're really worried about all of that, maybe go get a calcium score, go see what that looks like.
I've done that.
And what was it? I mean,
it was a 6, and they just said that for my age wasn't on the high end.
well, yeah, because it goes from like 0 to like 1200. So, okay. And 0 is perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, they just said that there were signs, but not.
Oh, yeah.
Zero.
I mean, again, I'm not going to give you any like diagnosis or whatever, but I'm just like, oh, well, I mean, that, and I would think keeping, really good track of what your insulin is like and making sure that visceral fat. Okay. So you have 3 kinds of fat. You have subcutaneous fat, which is what's under your skin. That's kind of benign, right? Mm-hmm. Then you have the visceral fat, which is around your organs, which will start sending out all the signals to mess things up and lots of inflammatory markers and things. And then you have the ectopic fat, which is the fat that actually accumulates inside of the organs, which is incredibly dangerous, right? So I think like one of the best things you can be doing is just making sure that like this is healthy and that you're not growing. We see so many people that are like walking around with like the beer bellies or they're not even beer bellies, they're just bellies. I feel like that's one of the best things you can do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So really the circumference of the
waist circumference is huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, and there's lots of other stuff, right? Make sure your blood pressure is healthy and good, which that's a whole nother thing because that used to be 165 over 90 and you keep dropping that. And I think they're trying to drop it again.
Okay.
What about BMI?
So I don't love BMI. And the only reason why is when I get like a big muscular guy that comes in, their BMI is way too high, but their body fat percentage is fine. So that was always something that I noticed. It just seemed like sometimes the BMI, it just doesn't
you
always
would look ill if you got to the standard that they put on that.
Yeah. So when my clients come in my office, I do a body fat percentage check just with like a bioimpedance machine. And it does do the BMI, but we never talk about the BMI.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, what else do you see in my labs?
Okay, so we talked about the iron. We talked about, something else that I saw. And this is, so your sodium in your blood, it was 138, which is completely perfectly fine in range. I find people do better when they're around 140. And I also would think that probably more good quality salt in your diet would be helpful.
Okay.
And so I'm not talking about the crappy table salt, but like maybe a Baja salt or like a Redmond salt or something like that.
Yeah.
That helps with stomach acid and digestion.
Okay.
So that's a huge critical piece of that. So that may be helpful.
Yeah.
I did see that your carbon dioxide was just like that much too high. So I don't know. There's a possibility, again, and this is just from my perspective, not from a medical doctor's perspective. I'm like, maybe you went in a little dehydrated to get the labs.
Okay. It's possible. Definitely.
And the other thing about hydration is it's so tricky, right? Because people will be like, oh, I drink all this water. And I'm like, and then they're peeing all day long. And I'm like, so it's never getting into your cells. It's just going straight through you. So sometimes the salt will help with that, like pull it into the cells.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your vitamin D, I like to see it around 60. It was at 49. Also, it's been winter. Like maybe as you get out in the sun, that'll come up on its own. But that does help with blood sugar control.
Yeah, they identified D3 as being low for me, so I started taking D3.
Oh, are you taking a supplement?
I'm taking that right now, daily.
Yeah.
And then I do take a fish oil.
And,
the statin. And then I was taking just like a multivitamin. What's funny is that I think I even took a B12, but boy, that B12 really did a number on my stomach.
Oh, okay. So maybe this is why you got to start with good digestion first.
Yeah. And that's why while you're going through that, I'm just kind of curious, like how much of it is not able to absorb.
Right. Yeah. And especially with the symptoms that you say you're having, I'm like, that may be fire number one to put out. Yeah. Is improve the digestion. A little salt in your water might be helpful.
Okay.
Like I said, a good salt, and you can kind of do it to taste.
Okay.
Ginger is really great for digestion. So I also a couple of things, probably don't need to be drinking ice cold water. That's kind of hard on your digestion.
Okay.
A lot of people with low stomach acid, I have noticed, and it's a lot of men, so you may be guilty of this. I don't know. They drink all their water at their meals. That's the worst time to drink it.
Okay. Don't drink water
because
with
you
meals.
want your stomach acid strong.
Okay.
Right? And
Yeah,
you're
that
just
makes sense.
diluting it down. And so now it's like, I'm trying to do a job here, but I can't. So drink your water between your meals.
Okay.
So that's where I would start.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, just want to back up. D3, you're taking with a K2.
Yes.
Okay. And then the fish oil, if I had known you were taking a fish oil, we could have added it to the test here, but I do like to test for people omega-3. So we know that the fish oil is working, because
Yeah.
so many brands are kind of crap. Excuse my
Right.
language. But yeah. And
Yeah.
there are a few really good brands, but it's, I'll have someone come to me who's like, I've been taking this fish oil for years, and we'll test their omega-3 level, and it's like in the toilet.
I think it's BioOptic is what I'm
Yeah,
the
that one I'm
brand.
not
I don't know if that's a
familiar
good
with. And if we had tested, we would have known. Like,
Sure.
oh, okay, is this doing what we want it to? Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, most of the rest of your labs, like your CRP, which is a inflammation marker, it looked really good.
Okay. But
yeah.
that won't show up if there's gut health.
The CRP. So I feel like normally that's going to show up. It could show up if there's a gut health thing, or if there's a liver thing, but not always.
Okay.
So I can't just rely on that one marker, because it could be inflammation somewhere else. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
So how do listeners reach out to you for your advice?
So they can find my website. It's drshuck.com. SHUC. Well, so it's DRSHUCK.com. I also have social media when it's not getting hacked or shut down. So yeah, I have learned that you cannot talk about certain weight loss medications on social media. They don't like that when you say how they actually work and what they do to the body.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, but I do have Instagram, Facebook, sometimes TikTok.
And you have an event.
Oh, and I do have an event coming up. It's all about gut health, surprise. But this is a fun way to learn about gut health. So it's a workshop, and what we do is people come out to our farm. We have a little hobby farm with miniature animals. So they come see the miniature horses and the rabbits and the goats. And then after everyone does a good hand washing, then we start making things. So I'm going to teach people how to make tapache, which is a fermented pineapple beverage. So cheap, so easy. If your listeners are familiar with kombucha, this is like a much easier, cheaper way to do that. And then I'll also teach them to make fermented salsa. So we're doing this on May 2nd. So by May 5th, because these are 3-day ferments, they'll be ready if they want to have them for Cinco de Mayo.
What's the address?
That's so cool.
It's the Fluffy Farm, and we are located in Rogersville, which it's almost Springfield.
Farm.
Really.
Love it.
Yeah. Again, my husband didn't love, that wasn't the most masculine of names, but
Sounds like he's a good sport.
he is. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, what final advice would you give to folks out there who are just struggling and trying to find their way in this sea of medical advice, whether professional or whatever?
I would say a couple of things. One, know that the body is truly designed to heal. Sometimes we just have to get out of the way or give it the right tools. The other thing I would say is, know your starting point, because you can't get to your destination, right? Unless you know where you are to start with. I can't go in my car and plug in a sunny beachside Florida destination and don't have my location services turned on.
Right.
As then my car is going to lose its mind, doesn't know where to go. So start figuring out your current location. That's your labs, your sleep, your energy, your mood, your food diary, all of that. Start setting the location, and then you can figure out where you need to go.
So awesome. Dr. Shuck, thank you so much. Thanks
you.
for the work you do.
Yeah, thank you guys. Love to be here. Thank you so much.
If you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode.
And we'd love to stay connected. Follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and on Instagram at In Good Company Elder Care Podcast.
You can also find us on X, formerly known as Twitter, at IGC Pod, and on TikTok at IGC Elder Care Podcast.
Thanks for tuning in to In Good Company. I'm John Ray, and I've been joined by my amazing co-host, Spencer Ernst. Special thanks to our executive producer, Alex Wallace, for helping bring this show to life. Until next time, take care, and remember, you are always in good company.